ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते. So welcome to our Saturday morning session. We are continuing on the core message of Bhagavad Gita, and today we will see chapter 13 and 14. In fact, these chapters unravel the mysteries of the universe. To some extent, Lord Krishna did that in chapter 7 and then chapter 9. But these chapters provide in-depth analysis of the entire universe. And that is why these chapters are extremely important, actually also 15, 13, 14, 15. Now, if you look at verse number 5 and 6 of this chapter, they explain what is this universe. Now, let's have a look. Mahabhuta ahankaro buddhi ravyaktamev cha Indriyani daskam cha panch chandriya gochara. And verse number 6, Ichha dves sukham dukkham sanghat chetana dhrati etat kshetram samasen savikar mudayatam. Now he says here that Panch Mahabhut, Ahankar, Panch Tanmatra, Avyakt, Mool Prakriti, 10 senses, and 5, what you call Visay. These constitute this universe in which we live. It is not really universe, it is the world we live in. Now, first is the Avyakt. From Avyakt comes what we call Mahat Tattva. From Mahat Tattva comes Ahankar. From Ahankar comes 5 Tanmatras, that is Shabd, Spars, Roop, Ras or Gandh. Then these 5 Tanmatras give rise to 5 gross elements, which are Akash, Vayu, Agni, Jal or Prithvi. And then these 5 Tanmatras also give rise to 5 senses of action and 5 senses of perception. So this is what they call it 24 elements that constitute this world. So these are the 24 elements. Avyakt first, then comes Mahat second, then comes Ahankar third, then comes Man 4, then 5 Tanmatras, 5 gross elements, 5 senses of action and 5 senses of perception. So that makes 20. So 24. You will find this in many of these, great Indian writings. So these constitute the universe. And this is the science how the world is constituted. So we are linked with these 5 Tanmatras. We are also linked with the 5 gross elements, and our sense organs are linked with each one of them. Like the sense of hearing is linked with space or Akash. Sense of touch is linked with Vayu or air. Sense of sight is linked with Agni. Sense of taste is linked with water. And sense of smell is linked with earth. So this is the science of the entire universe, which has been explained. And when these sense organs, they interact with the 5 gross elements outside, then the interaction starts. And that is where he talks about Ichha, Dves, Sukh, Dukh, Sthul Deha ka Pind, Chetana and Dhati. These things happen. When you interact with the outside world or the five gross elements, you get some reaction. Either you are happy or you are unhappy. So sukh and dukh comes. First comes ichha, desire to interact. And that desire gives you either sukh or dukh. Then it also touches your, what you call consciousness, your chaitanya. And dhriti is basically that it keeps you stable or unstable. So these are the reactions which happen when we interact with the world outside. So this is how the science of our existence works. Has been explained in these two verses beautifully. Then he talks in this chapter, what is Gyan, what is knowledge? Fantastic explanation. Now, what is Gyan is something amazing which he has said. And I'll read it in Hindi. श्रेष्ठता के अभिमान का अभाव, दंभाचरण का अभाव, किसी भी प्राणी को न सताना, क्षमा भाव, मन वाणी की सरलता, श्रद्धा भक्ति सहित गुरु की सेवा, बाहर भीतर की शुद्धि, अंतःकरण की स्थिरता, मन और इंद्रियों का निग्रह, इस लोक और परलोक में आसक्ति का अभाव, जन्म मृत्यु जरा और रोग आदि में सुख दुखों पर बारंबार विचार करना, स्त्री पुरुष घर और धन आदि में आसक्ति का न होना, प्रिय और अप्रिय में किसी भी प्रकार से चित्त को सम रखना और मुझ परमेश्वर में अव्यभिचारिणी भक्ति रखना, शुद्ध देश में रहना, एकांत में रहना. दिस इज व्हाट ही सेज इज ज्ञान. All this is Gyan. So these are the elements, is to look back, to understand the Supreme, to have single-minded faith in the Supreme, and not to have attachment with anything in the world, keeping oneself in the state of equanimity, lack of ego, lack of artificial behavior, respect for the teacher, and simple way of living, speaking, talking, and keeping the sense organs under control. Now, this is what is Gyan. This is all that is Gyan. And everything beyond that or against it is a Gyan. You see, such a simple definition. And if we can understand these 4 verses 7 to 11, we know what is Gyan and what is a Gyan. So this is another fantastic description in this chapter. The first stage, what is this universe, how it works? Rather, what is this world and how it works? And what is Gyan and what is a Gyan? And then he talks about Paramatma. What is Paramatma? He showed his universal form to Arjun. That was very clearly in chapter 11. But he did not describe it. Upanishads have described it in variety of forms. But here, he describes the form of the Supreme. What is Supreme? So actually, some of these verses appear exactly the same way in Upanishads also, amazingly. Sarvat panipad tat sarvato shati sikho mukham sarvata shrutim loke सर्व मावृत्य तिष्ठन्ति. सब और हाथ पैर वाला, सब और नेत्र और सिर और मुख वाला और कान वाला, सबको व्याप्त करके वो संसार में व्याप्त है. सब तरफ उसके हाथ हैं, पैर हैं, सिर है, नेत्र हैं, मुख है, कान है. और सबको व्याप्त करके व्याप्त है वो। सर्वेंद्रिय गुणाभासम सर्वेंद्रिय विवर्जितम असक्तम सर्वभृतचय निर्गुण गुण भोक्तृचय। Despite all that, he does not have any sense organs. संपूर्ण इंद्रियों के विषयों को जानता है लेकिन वास्तव में इंद्रियों से रहित है। In the first verse says, he says he has his hands, his feet, his eyes, his ears everywhere. But here he says that he knows all the subjects of sense organs, but he has no sense organs at all. सबका धारण पोषण, he is taking care of everybody, but still he is nirakar, nirgun. He has no qualities which can be explained. So this is what we call contradiction of language, because language is always dual. You can describe light with darkness. You can describe left with right, but you cannot describe something which has no direction at all. You cannot describe something which has no qualities at all. It's not possible to describe. So this is the contradiction of language. But this is what the Lord is, because we measure everything with our sense organs, which has dualities. But here, the Supreme is beyond dualities, and therefore it is not possible for us to describe him in linguistic form without contradictions, without, what we call something which appears to be contradicting each other. That on the one hand, he can perceive all the subjects of the sense organs, but at the same time, he has no sense organs and he has no qualities of his own. Then, next one, वह चराचर सब भूतों के बाहर भीतर पूर्ण रूप से और चर अचर भी वही है, और वह सूक्ष्म होने से अविज्ञ और अति समीप में और दूर में होने से अज्ञेय है. Now, on the one hand, he is everywhere, but at the same time, what he says, that वो अंदर भी है बाहर भी है लेकिन फिर भी ज्ञेय नहीं है. Still we cannot understand him. He's inside, he's outside, he's everywhere. But सूक्ष्म है, इतना बारीक है कि वो अविज्ञेय है. He cannot be understood. And he is nearest to us, but also farthest from us. So all this language of contradiction, we talked about this before, is actually required to explain the Supreme. So this is what the Supreme is. Then verse number 16, वह परमात्मा विभाग रहित एक रूप से आकाश के सदृश परिपूर्ण होने पर भी चराचर संपूर्ण भूतों में विभक्त सा प्रतीत होता है. Like this whole space is one single undivided entity, but we divide it into cities and houses and go downs and playground. We divide it. Once those are demolished, it's the same space. It's inside and outside. We just create these walls to divide the space. Similarly, the bodies which we inherit have been created to divide that Supreme Being. So the Supreme Being is inside us, but the body creates a wall around us, and we remain protected in the wall. Like in the space, we create a wall around our house, so the house is defined within those walls. So the space is inside the walls and outside the walls. Similarly, the Supreme is inside us and outside us, but this body is a wall around us, and that is why it appears different. It appears that It appears, distinct entities, so many different entities, while it is one single entity. तथा वह जानने योग्य परमात्मा विष्णु रूप से सब भूतों को धारण करने वाला, पोषण करने वाला, रुद्र रूप से संहार करने वाला और ब्रह्मा रूप से उत्पन्न करने वाला. That he is the everything, Brahman, supreme. He is Vishnu, he is Shiv, he is Brahma. So he gives birth, he does the maintenance, and he also does the destruction or cause of the death. So all that is one single entity. And this last 17, वह पर ब्रह्म ज्योतियों का भी ज्योति, माया से अत्यंत परे, वह परमात्मा बोध स्वरूप, जानने योग्य और तत्व ज्ञान से प्राप्त होने योग्य सबके हृदय में विशेष रूप से स्थित है. Now this is what he has explained, what this universe is, what is this supreme is all about. The supreme's existence, how we can define. So in this chapter, he has defined what is this world, how the world comes into being from avyakt, then how we interact with the world, which causes pain and pleasure to us, which leads to more desires. And then he talks about what is jnana, what is knowledge, and what is ajnana. Anything which is not covered by those 4 verses, that is ajnana. And then he talks about what is Paramatma, what is the Supreme, how you define. Now, this chapter actually covers the universe. Like chapter 7 covered individuals, individual entity. Second chapter gave great detail on that. And 7th chapter gave how that individual entity actually interacts with the Supreme, how it is constituted. And this chapter gives the secrets of our total existence. So this is what real knowledge is. If we really want to teach students what is this world, how we come into existence, how we get into the cycle of pain and pleasure, what is the supreme power, all that is contained in these verses. So this is knowledge, this is jnana, this is what we need to understand if we want to understand the truth of our existence. And then, of course, he talks about that everything that exists in this universe, it's a combination of Kshetra and Kshetragya. Kshetra is what was explained is that first verse number 5 and 6, that is Kshetra, where from Agyat comes Mayat Tattva, from Mayat Tattva comes Ahankar, then mind, and then 5 Tanmatras, leading to 5 gross elements and 5 senses of perception and 5 senses of action. So that is Kshetra. And Kshetragya is the one which provides Chaitanya. In chapter 7, these have been called Parasakti and Aparasakti. So he talked about Parasakti, that is Chaitanya, which provides life force. In this chapter, he calls them Kshetra and Kshetragya. A different explanation, but there's a reason behind that. Reason is that Kshetra is interacting with the rest of the world, and that is causing pain and pleasure and desires in human entities. So that is the reason he's calling it Kshetra. Kshetra is a field where action happens, like Kurukshetra, where the war happened, or a field where the farmer grows his crops. So there is an action-reaction there. So this is what he is calling, that how the individual entity interacts with the world. So that is why this world is called Kshetra. And Kshetragya is the one which provides Chaitanya, which provides consciousness, and which understands everything which is going on in this Kshetra. That is Kshetrajna. So he says that everything in this universe, whatever is in existence, is the combination of the two, Kshetra and Kshetrajna. Without that, nothing can exist. And therefore, we should not be wondered that people are disappearing, people are dying, because it's a cycle. They are coming and going, coming and going. The cycle continues. This cycle has been there since we don't know from when. It is anadi, since the beginning of everything. And it will continue forever. It never comes to a total end. So, in this process of destruction, we should see the truth of existence of the Supreme, that the Supreme is existing everywhere. The transformation is happening around him. If a child is grown into a teenager and a teenager into adult and adult into an old person, now all that is happening, but the Supreme is there all the time, constantly in that individual. Similarly, if the mountain is becoming valley and river is becoming desert and ocean is becoming mountain, all that is happening, the Supreme is constantly there in the physical nature as well. And all these changes are happening around him. So there's a one constant factor, that is the Supreme. Like in the fan, you have that axis in the center. That axis is not moving. The fan is moving all around it. Similarly, on the wheel of the car, that axis which is there in the center is not moving. If that moves, the wheel will not move. The wheel moves because of that axis. Similarly, this world moves because of that axis, and that axis comes from the Supreme. The Supreme works as the axis in this universe. So, this is what we have to understand. There are many more things in this chapter, but we have already covered those. We thought we'll just go over some of the important aspects. Now, chapter 14. Chapter 14 is slightly further explanation of this chapter 13. In this, first, Lord Krishna says, verse number 3, Mam yonir mahat brahma, tasmin garbham dadatyamam, sambhav sarva bhutanam, tato bhavati bharat. हे अर्जुन, मेरी महत ब्रह्म रूप मूल प्रकृति संपूर्ण भूतों की योनि है, अर्थात गर्भाधान का स्थान है, और उस योनि में मैं चेतन रूप गर्भ को स्थापन करता हूं। इस जड़ चेतन के संयोग से सब भूतों की उत्पत्ति होती है। लुक एट द साइंस, that everything is born into this nature. Whether you take crops which are born in the field, whether you take a child who is born in the womb of a mother, the womb is also made of the same 5 elements. मूल प्रकृति, महत, अव्यक्त, महत रूप मूल प्रकृति. So that physical nature, which is made of those 5 great elements, is the child-bearing place, and the consciousness which I infuse, that provides the birth. So sometimes people ask me, I've been also asked this question, that when a child is in the conception stage, what time he should be considered alive? Actually, no conception can happen without his being alive. The very moment the conception happens, it happens because the life force has already entered the natural force. The life force comes into play with the semen and the egg, and then only the conception happens. So that is how it has been explained here, and this is also true because everything which grows on its own must have a life force, otherwise it cannot grow on its own. Your laptop and your car doesn't grow on its own because it doesn't have life force. But a child grows, we also grow on our own. We change our own. An insect also grows on its own because there's a life force. So the conception when the fetus is there in very, very, very small form, it grows into larger, 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 which has been explained in great detail in Bhagavad Puran actually, and also in Garud Puran, chapter 15 of Garud Puran, that how this happens, how a child grows into the womb of a mother. It has been explained with great precision. So this is how it happens. The life force must be infused, and then only the conception happens. So this is what he said in chapter 14, verse number 3. And let's see verse number 4 and 5 also here, which are very related. हे अर्जुन, नाना प्रकार की सब योनियों में जितनी मूर्तियां अर्थात शरीरधारी प्राणी उत्पन्न होते हैं, प्रकृति तो उन सब की गर्भ धारण करने वाली माता है और मैं बीज का स्थापन करने वाला पिता हूं. नाउ दिस इज वेरी क्लियर. In any form, a life comes into being. It is a fish is born, or an animal is born, or a bird is born, or a human is born. All that happens because the nature, the prakriti, is the womb, and life force, Chaitanya, is providing life force which gives birth to different species of life. Murtiya means different species of life. They have different forms. These days, if you go, because of the rainy season, you go outside and see how many new forms of life you will see on the earth. When I go and walk, you see variety of insects come into. You will be able to see different varieties of insects. Even new category of birds you will see. Life force comes into existence. All that is happened because of these two things. That prakriti उन सब की योनि है, एंड बीज का स्थापन करने वाला मैं उन सब का पिता हूं. नाउ द अदर थिंग विच इज important, very important, is that why do we come into existence at all? Now that has been explained in verse number 5. हे अर्जुन, सत्व गुण, रजोगुण, तमोगुण, ये तीनों प्रकृति से उत्पन्न गुण अविनाशी जीव आत्मा को शरीर में बांधते हैं. How do we get into this body? These three, qualities of nature, Sat, Raj, and Tam, they bring about a sort of unity between the consciousness and the nature to provide a particular body to any entity in this universe. Now you cannot have. I marvel on the fantastic science which has been explained in all this verses here. No scientist can tell you all this. And then how they act, which has also been explained, how the sattva gun works, how the rajogun works, and how the tamogun works. And that is why if we want to get out of the cycle of birth and death, we have to get beyond the three gunas, trigunatit. We have to reach a state where we transcend sattva gun, rajogun, and tamogun, all the three, even the sattva gun. Even the sattva gun is also responsible for bringing us back into this universe. And why? This is, he says that तीनों गुणों में सत्व गुण तो निर्मल होने के कारण, विकार रहित होने के कारण, सुख के संबंध से, अर्थात सुख के साथ बांधता है. बिकॉज इट गिव्स यू हैप्पीनेस, इट गिव्स यू कंटेंटमेंट, एंड दैट हैप्पीनेस, कंटेंटमेंट, दैट ties you to the world. Rajogun ties you to, because of the passion, working hard. Like a businessman working very hard to become billionaire, trillionaire. A politician working so hard. He wants to become member of parliament and the minister and the prime minister, God knows what else. So that is Rajogun, which is passion. Some writer keeps writing books, passion. A painter keeps painting, that's passion. That is Rajogun. Rajogun is the one which actually, we call it productivity in the world. So the Rajogun people, they are in large number and they give productivity. The wealth is generated by those Rajogunis. Power is created by the Rajogunis. The art is developed by the Rajogunis. And all the construction, the architecture, whatever we see, it is all done because of the Rajogun. And Tamogun people, they are lazy, they relax, they don't care. That is also there. So these are the three qualities that are responsible for bringing us back in this universe, bringing it back, bringing us in some form of life. Whether we are born as human or animal or bird or fish, we don't know what. But these three gunas, they are responsible. And that is from where he talks about these gunas in this chapter in great detail. All the qualities of these gunas which we have seen before. So this is the explanation of this whole universe in these two chapters. This is a science par excellence which we will not find anywhere in this world. Now, chapter 15. We saw that chapter before. It's again a chapter which explains how we remain engaged into this world. In chapter 13, he tells that we do interaction. And because of the interaction, we create pain and pleasure. And because of pain and pleasure, we create desires. And more desires lead to further action. And that keeps working. But in chapter 15, he explains it in very scientific way. He gives an example of a tree which roots are up and branches are down. Now, roots are up means its origin is in the Supreme, and down is the world in which we live. So it's connected with the Supreme, but the branches are all down, and those branches are the one which have been explained as our engagement into the world. Let me take an example to explain that. Like a film actor. Somebody wants to become a film actor. He was impressed. So he goes to a training institution, learns acting. He contacts people who are producing films. He gets in touch with them. He is somehow liked by somebody, recruited. Then he becomes an actor. Maybe he gets a very, inferior role in the beginning. Then he tries to make it more prominent. Then he becomes villain, and then finally he starts becoming a big actor and he becomes a star, he becomes hero. All this happens. Then his desire further goes up. He says, why not I produce films? So he becomes producer. He becomes writer. He becomes distributor of the films. Then he says, why not? Why expand? I open a large company of mine, which will all take care of the production and distribution and, the art of, filmmaking, and will also train artists and all that. So he desires that. He expands that. He becomes that way. Then he has so much money. What does he do with the money? So he goes into how to protect that money, where to invest it, in what form to invest, who will look after the investments, how the investments will be protected. And then he says, how do I use that money? So he wants to distribute it for charity. He wants to give it to his children. So he remains engaged in this world. So branch after branch is created on this tree because of these desires. One desire leading to another, another to another, to the third and fourth and fifth, and it continues. So this is what Lord Krishna is saying, that it's sansar vraks. It continues to grow because of these desires which we have. So what he said in verse number 6 and 7 in chapter 13, that our interaction with the nature leads to pain and pleasure. Here that interaction becomes more intense, and it keeps creating new branches on the tree. So every day we create a branch on the tree because of our attachment in the world. Whether that branch is in the form of our children desiring something, our neighbors desiring something, or our spouse desiring something, or we want to do something for charity, or we want to do something for the society, whatever may be the reason. But some desires are there, and because of that, these new branches keep coming. So this is what he explained here. संसार वृक्ष की तीनों गुणों रूप जल के द्वारा बढ़ी हुई ये जल, what is that jal? That jal is the desires. That fertilizer is also the desires. All that. Bhog roop, that bhog, that one should, remain engaged in something which one enjoys. So that is bhog. Yog nahi, bhog. That is what these, branches are spread everywhere. So this is what he explains here. He explains that whole concept in the form of a tree. And he says that these ahamta, mamta or vasna, these three things, they keep providing a lot of what you call fertilizer to that tree and the branches. The branches keep going up and up, long and long. Therefore, he says that we should not remain engaged in these branches. We should look for the Supreme, from where everything originates. Where is the cause of all that? That cause should be looked at. And if we start looking at that, then we will find out the Paramatma, we'll find out the Parameswar, we'll find out the Supreme and his existence. And then he actually talks about Parampad, that once you are dedicated to him, once you surrender to him, then you reach that Parampad. Parampad is basically the final abode where you can reach. Beyond that, there's nothing. Param means the ultimate truth of our existence. And that is actually the Supreme where we. And then he gives you a beautiful example here. The example is that how we are reborn. He's again explaining why we are reborn, how we are reborn. He says, वायु गंध के स्थान से गंध को जैसे ग्रहण करके ले जाता है, वैसे ही देहादि का स्वामी जीवात्मा भी इस शरीर का त्याग करता है, उस शरीर से मन सहित इंद्रियों को ग्रहण करके ले जाता है और फिर वो दूसरे शरीर में उसको कन्वर्ट कर देता है. फैंटास्टिक एग्जाम्पल. जैसे विंड टेक्स द smell away from one place to another, the same way the jivatma, the soul, individual soul, it remains at the time of his death. It takes away the essence of sense organs and the mind with it, and then reappears in another form somewhere else based on that balance of karma, based on that the essence of the senses and the mind. What is the balance? That balance gives you the new birth. So this is a fantastic explanation how we are reborn and why we are reborn. What is the science of rebirth? So this is, then of course he talks about that how every single force in this universe is actually taking its power from the Supreme, which is again going back to Kenopanishad, where he says where the power of mind comes from. मनन की शक्ति कहां से आती? माइंड मनन कैसे करता है? Because there is a mind behind the mind, that is the supreme. There is an ear behind the ear, because how does the ear get the power to hear? Because there is an ear, that is supreme. There is the consciousness which provides that power. So he talks about that supreme, which is the source of all that we experience in this universe. So this is what he says, that I am the one who provide all that force, that I hold this earth. I appear as the sun. I appear as the moon. I appear in all the food products, Ostya, Vanaspatiya. That was also said in different language in chapter 10, when Arjuna asked him, अपनी विभूतियों का वर्णन कीजिए विस्तार से. But that was that different explanation. Here it is a direct explanation that every force which you see in this universe has its origin in the Supreme. अर्थात अमृतमय चंद्रमा होकर औषधियों को पुष्ट करता हूं, पृथ्वी में प्रवेश करके सब भूतों को धारण करता हूं. सूर्य में जो तेज है वो तेज मेरे से आता है. All that he has been explaining here. So this is in the human beings. He is in the form of Atma. Then he provides the consciousness to all your body organs. They operate inside. We eat food. Who digests that food? The consciousness provides the power to different organs which operate, and they convert them into blood and flesh and skin and hair and God knows what all. All that is happening because of that power from the consciousness. Similarly, the power of sense organs, the perception we have, or the motor organs, the action organs, all that comes from him. So this is what he has explained. So this is these three chapters, 13, 14, and 15. They are the most profound chapters anywhere you can find in this planet. They explain the science and all the secrets of our existence, all the secrets of universal existence, and all the secrets of our birth, rebirth, our pain and pleasure, and how we can get out of that. So I think I'll stop here. These chapters are fantastic chapters. It would be worth rereading them. Not only rereading, rereading many, many times. That will give us a very clear concept who we are, what we are, and why we are. Thank you.